Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good evening, faithful ones. We are, of course, studying the life of Holy Mother as offered to us by Swami Chetanananda in the book Sri Sarada, Her Divine Play. We're in the section where people are telling various stories of how Mother revealed her divine presence and her divine nature. Very sweetly, Haima has made time out of her visitor schedule to read for us. So with the people who are here, I don't suspect there are any questions or comments, but if there are, please, if there's anything you'd like to say, please say it before we start reading. Okay.
Shankara, I have one question.
Oh, yes, okay.
Last time we heard that Sriram or somebody that their relative had some doubts about Mother, Holy Mother, whether she was a divine or something. Plus, a lot of people in Jairam Bhatti and her relatives, they were doubtful. But that was not the case with the master, you know. Nobody doubted anything about him. So why is that?
Well, because of the lives they lived. The master lived a life of utter renunciation. He lived as Mother seemed to live just as an ordinary village woman. She very carefully did that. So people did not see her divinity. The master would frequently into samadhi, spoke, when he spoke to the devotees, it was in the highest, though his language was simple and said to be kind of primitive and village-like, rather than that of a scholarly or educated man. What he said was absolutely stunningly on point about the spiritual life and how to live. So he just lived this life very demonstrably. Whereas Mother lived, particularly when she was in Jairambati, unless something forced her out of that groove, so to speak, she lived as an ordinary village woman, and that's how she was regarded by so many. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Thank you.
Please, Haima, go ahead.
Okay. Namaste, everyone. We are on page 603, third paragraph. Swami Haripriyananda, a disciple of Holy Mother, recalled, "Let me tell you of an incident concerning Holy Mother. I don't remember the date or year, and I don't feel they're important. Rather, Holy Mother's niece had been suffering from a chronic disease for a long time. As a result, her body was reduced to a skeleton, She did not have strength even to speak. Whenever she tried to speak, only a croaking sound came from her throat. Holy Mother was very compassionate to her. She said to me, "Hari, I shall take Radhu to Bankura. Please come with me." Vaikunta, Holy Mother's disciple, lives in Bankura. He is an allopathic doctor, but practices homeopathy. He has a wonderful reputation. I said, "Do you mean Vaikunta Maharaj, Swami Maheshwarananda?" Yes, yes, you lived in Bankura town. You must know him." "Yes, mother, I know him very well. He is the head of the Bankura Center. He's an excellent homeopath." "Yes, you are right. I'm talking about him." I accompanied Holy Mother and Radhu to Bankura. At that time, there were not many rooms at the Bankura Center. There was no accommodation for outsiders, especially women. So a 2-room apartment was rented for Radhu's treatment. Radhu stayed in one room and Holy Mother and myself in the other. One evening, Dr. Maharaj, Swami Maheshwarananda, came and left after seeing Radhu. There was a small stool in our room. Mother was seated on it. On my own, I began to gently massage Mother's feet. They were wrinkled and dry. Moreover, her body was then lean and thin. While massaging her feet, a question arose in my mind. Is Mother truly the mother of the universe? Could the Divine Mother have such wrinkled feet with visible veins? Although the question was in my mind, I did not express it. I continued to massage her feet. Gradually, a mysterious change occurred. I felt that her feet were no longer the emaciated feet of an old woman. They were the well-developed feet of a young woman. There was a lantern nearby, and in the light, I clearly saw 2 beautiful feet outlined with a stripe of red paint, alta, toes fully developed and close to one another, and exquisite half-crescent toenails. There were also golden anklets adorned with gems and jewels. I wondered whose feet these were that I was massaging. Astonished and dumbfounded, I slowly shifted my gaze from Mother's feet to her face. I saw the form of Goddess Jagadatri with a golden complexion, 3 eyes and 4 arms, adorned with many ornaments. She wore a crown on her head and held weapons in her hands. A magnificent luster emanated from her body. Before I saw that form completely, I lost outer consciousness, saying, "Mother, Mother." I don't know how long I stayed in that condition. When I regained consciousness, I found Holy Mother caressing my back with her hand and saying, "Oh, Hari, oh, Hari, what has happened to you? Get up, get up." I got up and saw again the old, emaciated Mother looking at her sick knees. This is our Mother of the universe, Mother Sarada, the spiritual consort of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. Victory to the Mother, victory to the Master.
Okay, let's hold on.
Sure.
Any thoughts or comments or questions about what was just narrated?
I think Sham's question was answered second time after you answered, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
It was answered directly, right away, immediately.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to offer? Okay, dear, please go ahead.
Okay. Swami Arupananda narrated the following incident, which took place in Jairambati. Arupananda said, "Mother, shall I pass my whole life in this way? Constructing houses, marketing, keeping accounts. What shall I gain from doing such work?" The mother calmly replied, "Well, my son, what else do you want to do?" In this age, Swamiji has inculcated these works as the means of God realization. If you perform this work without any motive and as worship, you will attain liberation. What else do you want to do? Do you want to practice austerities in the solitude of the Himalayas? There you will find the monks fighting among themselves over a piece of bread and a blanket. Will the Lord appear before you if you go to the mountains and forests and sit there with closed eyes? Is there any better path than the path of action that has been delineated by Swamiji? While working, think that you are working only for God and are serving Him. The work that you are doing here is truly my work. Rasbihari, look at me. Rasbihari, look at me. Rasbihari, Arupananda, looked at the mother's face and saw a luminous goddess seated in front of him in place of the plain and elderly woman who had been talking to him. Her entire form was radiant with an effulgent light. Rasbihari could not keep looking at the luminous form. Struck with awe and fear, he closed his eyes. Immediately, he heard the familiar voice of the mother. "Oh, Rasbihari, what happened to you? Why have you closed your eyes? Look at me." Rasbihari opened his eyes and saw Holy Mother sitting in front of him as before, the same familiar look with the usual sweet smile on her face. Towards the end of his life, Arupananda related another experience to a monk in Varanasi. "I was in Jairambati. The mother's new house was then under construction. Brahmachari Hemendra and I were looking after the construction work. The mother was living in one of the cottages of Uncle Prasanna, her brother. Sometimes her brothers argued with us, complaining, 'You are giving everything to our sister and depriving us.' Thus, one day a quarrel ensued and I was irritated. Perturbed, I went straight to the mother. She was standing on the veranda of Uncle Prasanna's house, facing the courtyard and holding onto a post with her left hand. Agitated, I said to her, 'Mother, there is so much quarreling, bickering, and disturbance that I cannot work here anymore.' Saying this, I sat on the veranda of a thatched hut opposite her cottage. The mother remained standing there and calmly said, 'If you cannot work here, that is fine. Here things go on in this way.' I saw her look vacantly towards me. Immediately, I saw that her standing form became illuminated and a halo appeared around her body for a while. The mother did not say anything else. This vision calmed my agitation instantly. A complete change took place in my mind, and I thought, to whom did I say that I won't do your work? I left and began to work again with great enthusiasm and respect. I saw this clearly with my open eyes in broad daylight.
Okay. Here these two instances have been narrated of Mother showing who it is that these monks were truly working for. The thing for us to understand is that if we take this attitude toward our work, if we take the attitude that all of this creation is Mother's creation, that it is, in a sense, Mother herself. That's certainly what it says in the Chandi, that Mother herself has become all of this. Then we can say that any work that we do, we are doing for her. And we can think of these instances. And we can pray that we too will be transformed as this monk was just transformed by having some experience of the Mother that lifts us up out of our ordinariness and into this extraordinary relationship with the Mother. So having said all that, are there any comments or questions from anyone else? Any comments from your own experience or wisdom? Any concerns that you have about what's said, or any questions?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Swayam.
The answer that Mother gave to that Swami, I forgot the name, who was questioning what's the use of doing all this work, brought a couple of questions to my mind. One was, Sri Ramakrishna, the master, said to one of his disciples, I'm not sure, I think it was Shambhu Malik or somebody, first come into the neighborhood of God, then you can open your hospitals and whatever.
Well, he was saying, he was narrating all his plans to the master for hospitals and roads and wells and so on. And the master said, first realize God, then go ahead with whatever work you are directed to do by God.
Right. So when Swamiji came back and he started this whole mission, I believe there was some resistance because some people, probably including M, objected that because Master said first realize God and then do the work. But Holy Mother, I think, blessed Swamiji's efforts, and she totally was agreeable to that. So did Sri Ramakrishna give Vivekananda a separate message?
Yes. If you remember when he was on that rock at the very tip of India before he left for the West, he had this insight that the monks were to do this kind of work in the villages, work for the people, work to uplift the people of India, to educate them, to uplift them, to give them the necessities so that they could do for themselves. You know, the story goes, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him how to fish, he eats for the rest of his life. So that's just one little humble example of what Swamiji was talking about. If you read his letters, you see that he constantly is developing this idea And he's very, very anxious that the monks adopt this point of view. And he fully persuaded, if he needed any persuading at all, and I think there was some, not resistance, but just inertia in Swami Brahmananda in the beginning, because he was so oriented toward inwardness rather than outward activity. But by the time Swamiji returned in 1897 from the West, Brahmananda was fully on board. And so, yes, there were objections from some of the monks to doing this kind of work, and it was because they were scorned for it. It was termed women's work. They were doing women's work, and that monks shouldn't be involved in such grubby worldly activities. And so the mother is giving us an insight here. You're working for me, she says. You're working to uplift my world. And Sri Ramakrishna did definitely give Swamiji that mission. Swamiji said, everything that I have done that is of merit or any success is due to Sri Ramakrishna. Anything that has been a mistake or a failure is my own. And so clearly the work ethic that Swami Vivekananda Swamiji brought back with him from the West, and tried to teach the monks how Westerners organized work, and thereby were much more efficient than the people had normally been from Swamiji's experience, and he had wide experience. So he came back not only with this work ethic, but a lot of process, best practices, we would call it these days, thinking, and taught this to the monks. Now, if you look at the monastic lives, the monastic organization in India, you will find that practically all of them follow the Ramakrishna order. Certainly all of the Shankara orders do.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything else from anyone?
Namaste, Brother Shankar. Namaste, everybody.
Yes, Shailesh.
I I want to share some thoughts about I forgot your name. What she said just now. I thought about it quite a few times. So Sriram, if you take the example of Sri Ramakrishna talking to these people, these devotees who used to come and say, I'm going to do this. All these people were very rich, very well off. They had wives and children, and they had satisfied all the desires. And with all the surplus money, they had this desire to serve the world. And so Sri Ramakrishna could see the ego, and he could see the distraction in their pious life, whatever they could achieve. So that's one thing. And if you look at these monks, Rajbihari Maharaj or other Barda Maharaj and other things, they are already monks. They have given up everything. They're doing all this sadhana. So I have quite a few people who are in the order, my friends, and I see their life, and I always talk to them every week, every other week. I know I'm talking to some monk, and they live an extraordinary austere life. Not going out, not socializing, no going out, restaurants, movies. That itself is a tapasya. Then they're talking about lust control, brahmacharya. That itself is a big thing. And so if you look at that, they are already doing all that. And then Mother clearly says here in one place, that if you go to Himalayas, you will see that people fight because for the food, because that's the problem, one problem. The second thing is that then there is too much of empty time on your hand. And so what you would do, and so Swamiji was very smart about it. He said that you guys are doing everything you could do. When the time is right, you will have a realization. But in the meantime, do this service because it will, it's like extra brownie points. And so mother is trying to convince them, but then they are not getting convinced. So she's just showing them her divine form. So that's how I see it. It's very it's like Brother Shankara said, the whole thing changed everything. The people started looking at it that it's, and then they started because if you read some monks' other life, like I was reading Swami Papa Ramdas, and he has published 3 books, and he was a monk who lived in 1920s, and he traveled all around India, and some of you know probably him. He mentioned it has his travelogue. He has mentioned it everywhere. He saw monks quarreling and fighting and ego and this and that. Only in the Ramakrishna order, it is very, very well organized, very formulated. There is a framework. You have to do this, and then you also do service. So I think it's we cannot compare with all those babus who came to Sri Ramakrishna and all these monks. Definitely not. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh. Very well said. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot your name.
Swayam.
Yeah.
So anything else from anyone? Any questions? Any comments? All right, please go ahead, dear.
Sure, Brother Shankar. Vaikuntha, later Swami Maheshwarananda of Bankura, was an allopathic doctor, but later began to practice homeopathy because it was less expensive for poor people who could not afford to buy allopathic medicines. He was a reputable and successful doctor, and Holy Mother had tremendous faith in him. He used to put the first dose of medicine on the patient's tongue and then give the patient the rest of the doses in small packets to take later. Once the mother was suffering from dysentery in Jagadamba Ashrama, Kolpara. Vaikuntha came from Bankura to treat her. He opened his homeopathic medicine box and came forward to put a drop of medicine on mother's tongue. But just as he was about to administer the medicine, he became confused and dumbfounded. He kept on looking at the mother's face. The mother said, "Oh, Vaikuntha, give me the medicine." Vaikuntha was startled and his hand began to shake. Instead of dropping the medicine on her tongue, he put the medicine phial back in the box and prostrated at her feet. The mother asked, "What happened, Vaikuntha? Will you not give me the medicine?" Still shivering, Vaikuntha said, "Yes, mother, I shall give the medicine. But what I have seen, mother? What have I seen, mother?" Without answering the question, she changed the topic and said, "My son, I'm suffering from dysentery. Please give me some medicine quickly." Vaikuntha put some of the medicine into the mother's hand and asked her to swallow it. Later, Vaikuntha said that he had seen the face of the goddess Jagadatri in the mother's face. So he did not dare put medicine directly in her mouth. Afterwards, he always gave medicine to the mother in tiny paper packets. Chandra Mohan Datta wrote in his reminiscences, "Holy Mother graciously revealed her true nature to me. She made me understand that she was a goddess of heaven, born as a human being to deliver us. I sometimes accompanied the mother to Jairampati. Once the mother was returning to Calcutta, and we were traveling by bullock cart via Kolpara. On the way to Vishnupur, the bullock cart stopped and the mother took a little rest under a roadside tree. Suddenly, a desire came to my mind to see the true form of the mother. Seeing her alone under the tree, I beseeched her, "Mother, you love me like your own son. It is through your benevolence alone that I maintain myself and my family. You protect us from all danger and adversity. Still, I have an unfulfilled desire. If you fulfill that, I shall have nothing left to wish for." The mother wanted to know about that desire. I said, "My last desire is to see your true form." The mother did not agree to this. Observing my repeated earnest entreaties, she reluctantly agreed and said to her companions, "You go away a little. I shall have a private talk with him." She said to me, "Look, you alone will see it and no one else. Don't be afraid of seeing my true form, and don't divulge to others what you will see as long as I am alive." Saying so, the mother assumed her true form in front of me. It was the form of the Divine Mother, Jagadatri. I was petrified with fear by seeing that divine luminous form. An ethereal glow emanated from her body, illuminating the area. My eyes were dazzled by the brilliance of the glow. I further saw Jaya and Vijaya, two companions of Jagadatri, flanking the mother. My whole body began to tremble and did not stop. I could not stand steadily. I fell at her feet. The mother then withdrew the form of Jagadatri and resumed her usual human form. She stroked me with her hand, and slowly my shivering stopped. When I regained my normal state, she said again, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen as long as I am alive." I asked the mother, "Who are your Jaya and Vijaya?" "Golap and Yogin," she replied.
What a revelation that is right there. Golap Ma and Yogin Ma. Okay, please.
Basana Nandi was born near Kamarpakur, probably in 1899. She was married when she was 7 years old, but her husband died shortly thereafter. When she was 13, Holy Mother hired her to do some household work, such as cleaning the dishes and clothes, sweeping and mopping the floor, and so on. In the evenings, she also massaged the mother's feet to relieve her rheumatism. Basana recalled, "One day in Jairampati, I wanted to go to a neighboring village to attend a puja festival. But the mother would not allow me to go alone. That night, when I was massaging her feet with oil, she told me, 'The thing which you are eager to see, you will see here.' While massaging her feet, I fell asleep. Suddenly, my sleep broke and I saw a bright light all around. I have never seen such an effulgent light. I saw the living goddess Jagadatri in the midst of that light. It was a beautiful and benign form of the Divine Mother. But I did not see the mother. Frightened, I cried, 'Mother, Mother,' and ran out of the room. But I did not see the mother outside either. I returned to the room and found the mother sleeping on her bed. There was no more blazing light.
Hmm.
Instead, a dim kerosene lantern was lit in a corner. I called out to the mother and she asked, "What have you seen?" I told her what I saw. Smiling, she said, "What you have seen is true. I am Jagadatri, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali."
Now, just put that in your pipe and smoke it. Read that last a little bit again, what she said when she came back into the room and saw mother sleeping, all that.
I returned to the room and found the mother sleeping on her bed. Do you want me to read the whole paragraph, Brother Shankara?
No, just
This is
from
good?
from where you were. Just
I returned to the room and found the mother sleeping on her bed. There was no more blazing light. Instead, a dim kerosene lantern was lit in a corner. I called out to the mother and she asked, "What have you seen?" I told her what I saw. Smiling, she said, "What have you seen is true. I am Jagadatri, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali."
well, there you have it.
She's
That's
all.
who we are in the presence of when we are in the presence of a picture of Holy Mother. Remember that those pictures are not inert things. If you poke one of the Swamis, they will tell you, "Oh yes, those pictures are alive. Those pictures are the real. They are the reality. They may seem to our eyes to be inert, but they are not." And when we're seeing her, Jagadatri, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali. Oof. That just about wraps it up, doesn't it? How are we doing for time?
We still have 20 minutes to go.
Oh, good. Okay. Please go ahead, dear.
Okay. Lal Mohan Das, known as Lalu, was a fisherman who lived in Satbear village, close to Jairampati. When he had time off from fishing, he learned ball songs from Baral Master, who was a worshipper of Kali. Lalu bought a ball costume. Is it a ball or bowl?
Baul.
Baul.
By the way, just as an aside, the master said that he would return in 2086, 200 years after he left the body. He said he would return, and he would return as a Baul, that he would not be known as he was known in the 1836 to 1886 incarnation. He would not be known. He would simply bring another great wave of spirituality into the world, that it was necessary, but that he would not be known. He would just, but his band of minstrels, as he said, would come with him as the rest of the Baul troop. But there are many, many Baul troops. There are many now, and there will be many in 2086, no doubt, perhaps even more than there are now. The world is changing, and who knows what will come forward during this time between now and 2086. But at least the master was very clear about that he would be born, he said, to the northwest, which means Rajasthan or, that area, Gujarat. And that's, I guess, the primary place where the Bauls are. Though clearly there were Baul masters and Baul singers in Bengal, But Sri Ramakrishna said he would be born to the northwest. He actually gestured in that direction. And Holy Mother and Swamiji both affirmed this, that he had told them that as well, and that was their knowledge, that he would be born. And of course, Mother will be with him. And I can't but believe that Swamiji will also be with him. Swamiji and, of course, Brahmananda, who is known as the eternal companion, Raja Maharaj. And the rest of the band of minstrels. This is the story. So please, go ahead, dear.
Lalu bought a baul costume, anklets, an ektara, a stringed instrument, and a small tabor, a drum. With permission from Holy Mother, he sang baul songs during the Jagadatri Puja in Jairampati. Lalu used to call Holy Mother aunt. His wife and 4 sons were also devoted to her. The mother always had many visitors, and Lalu used to supply fish and vegetables for them. During one of the festivals, the Swamis of Jairampati asked Lalu to catch fish from Punyapakur, which belonged to the mother. Lalu went with his party and dropped a long net in the water. The mother and her nieces came to the eastern ghat to watch. Lalu reminisced. Although I was busy in the water pulling the net, my eyes from time to time were on aunt. I saw her walking on the east side of the pond along with the 2 women. Those 2 women were Jaya and Vijaya, 2 companions of the Divine Mother. 2 women wearing the same bordered saris and similar veils. I did not see their faces, but it seemed that their faces were similar to aunt's. I was startled. I was about to go to aunt, but suddenly a big fish escaped by jumping over the net. Again, I concentrated on setting the net. We caught some small fish, but could not get the big one for aunt. Later one day, when she was alone, I asked her, Aunt, the other day when you came to see our fishing with your nieces, I saw 2 women with you who seemed to be your age and of a similar appearance and had similar clothing. Without assigning any importance to my question, she said, who else was with me? Leaving Radhu and Maku, I went to the Beltala to get some gaim spinach. I said, no, aunt, when you were going to the Beltala, I saw 2 women. One was in front of you and other in back. Smiling, aunt said, Lalu, you have too much bile in your stomach.
Oftentimes, this is the way, when Swami Aparananda used to have spiritual experiences, Swami Swahananda would say, oh, you're not getting enough exercise. Lala, you have too much bile in your stomach. All right, go ahead, dear.
You should drink some rock candy syrup. That's what mother said. Saying so, aunt entered her room. Again, I saw 2 women, one in front of her and the other behind her. I cried out, Aunt. She answered from the room, Lalu, wait for some prasad. She returned and gave me some sweetened puffed rice and fruit. Aunt never revealed her divinity, but I will never forget those 2 scenes. From then on, I had no doubt that aunt was not a human being. She was truly a goddess. Aghoramani, a childhood. Okay, sure.
Two of Swami Prabhavananda's women disciples who lived. There were 7 women who lived on the hill there by the Hollywood Center. And they were called the wise women of the hill, these 7 women. 2 of them were sisters. And they were given the names Jaya and Vijaya. And they were very, very powerful personalities. It was wonderful to know them. Both of them were nurses and provided a lot of service to the monks and nuns there at the center. Jaya and Vijaya. I have such sweet memories. One time when I was having headaches, this was when I was having problems with sleep apnea, and I was having headaches. Vijaya gave me some medicine that helped the headaches. Jaya and Vijaya, these eternal companions of the mother. Okay, dear, please go ahead.
Okay. Aghoramani, a childhood friend of Holy Mother, recalled, once during the Jagadatri Puja in Jairambati, Ramride Goshal of Haldepukar village was present. He saw Holy Mother meditating in front of the goddess Jagadatri in the shrine. For a long time, he looked at the face of the image and then at the face of Holy Mother. Back and forth went his gaze, and he could not find any difference between them. Stupefied and frightened, Ramride left. Holy Mother was seen in her Jagadatri form by several of her disciples and devotees. But what about her other divine forms? While in Rameshwaram, as soon as she saw the image of Lord Rameshwar, she exclaimed, I see it is just the same as when I placed it here. She remembered that she was Sita in one of her previous incarnations. The porter of the Vishnupur railway station recognized Holy Mother as Sita and received initiation from her. After Ramakrishna's passing away, Holy Mother went to Vrindavan for a pilgrimage. There she experienced the mood of Radha and restlessly searched for Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. Later, she told a devotee that she
would become very abstracted. This story was told earlier in the book, but there's other in Gambirananda's book about her. There's a long passage in which it's described this way she would become totally abstracted and not present to the other people who were with her. She would be, as it was just put here, restlessly searching for Krishna. But and tears would be on her face, and she would be in this very strange and abstracted mood. Wonderful, wonderful. You can read about it in detail in the Gambirananda book, which is very detailed in many of these things. Okay, go ahead, dear.
Later, she told a devotee that she had been Radha in a previous incarnation. Durga Puri narrated the following incident. Once a Vaishnava priest of the Shaitala temple in Garpar, East Calcutta, asked Gauri Ma to accompany him to Vrindavan, the place of Radha and Krishna. She told the priest, well, one day I shall show you the living Radharani. The priest did not understand Gauri Ma's hint. Then she went to Udbodhan and told Holy Mother what she had said to the priest. As soon as Holy Mother heard the word, living Radharani, she protested, saying, shame on you. Why did you say that to Gardasi? Radha was Chinmayi, consciousness personified. You are also the same, remarked Gaurima. After a few days, Gaurima accompanied the priest to Udbodhan, who at first saw the mother as an ordinary woman. However, he bowed down to the mother and then raised his head to see her face. Overwhelmed, he kept on looking at the mother's face. He then folded his hands and repeated 3 times, Vande Radham Ananda Rupinim. I salute Radha, the embodiment of bliss. It is well known that the mother encountered a robber at Telebello, and that she addressed him as father. One day, Ashu asked the mother, "What did the robber see in you?" "He told me that he saw Kali in me," Holy Mother replied.
And he narrated this incident in detail. It was earlier in this book, and it's in other stories about.
Yes.
Go ahead, dear.
"He told me that he saw Kali in me," Holy Mother replied. Ashu responded, "Then you revealed yourself to him as Kali." "Kali. Oh, then you revealed yourself to him as Kali? Don't hide it, Mother. Please tell me." "Why should I show him? He told me what he saw." "Well, Mother, you showed him that you were Kali. The robber did not see any other woman. He saw only you. Whether you admit it or not, it is self-evident that you showed him." "Well, you may say whatever you like," Holy Mother said and smiled. "Mother, I don't want to see your Kali form," said Ashu. "I am happy to see you in this form. You are my mother and I'm your son." "Very well, my son, I'm relieved. I will not have to stand and stick out my tongue."
Oh, sometimes mother's humor is so
Very
winning.
good sense of humor. After Ramakrishna's passing away, Holy Mother stayed in Kamarpakur for a year. In chapter 11, we related how she was pursued by Harish, who had become crazy, and how she escaped by punishing him and assuming a divine form.
Bagala.
Yes.
That's the form she assumed, a terrible form of the mother.
Later one day, Ashu asked the mother, "Mother, did you take the form of a Bagala at the time?" "I have heard this from the monks in Belur Math." Holy Mother replied, "Who knows, my child? I was then not myself." Ashu said, "You don't like to be caught. You are like a cat covered with ashes, so no one can recognize its true form." The mother smiled. In chapter 26, we described how Surendranath Sen went to ask for initiation from Swami Vivekananda, but Swamiji refused and told Surendra that the person who would initiate him was greater than himself. At that time, Surendra was very disappointed. However, he received a mantra from a goddess in a dream, and he reported this to Swamiji. Swamiji explained the dream. The master used to say, "A divine dream is true. It is called attaining perfection through a dream. Go on repeating this mantra. You will attain everything. You will not have to do anything else." "I don't believe in dreams," Surendra replied. "A dream is just a baseless thought." Swamiji said, "In fact, this dream is true. Go on repeating the mantra, and then you will see the goddess who gave the mantra will appear before you in a physical form. She is an incarnation of Bagala and is now in the form of Saraswati." "I don't understand what you mean," said Surendra. Swamiji reassured him, "You will understand in time. You will see that the external form is calm and benign, but the inner form is formidable. The form of Saraswati is very calm and serene." Surendra replied, "I don't believe all these things." "Whether you believe it or not, go on repeating the mantra. It will do you good," Swamiji advised. Surendra never repeated the mantra that he received in his dream, but later, when he was initiated by Holy Mother, he was amazed to discover that the dream mantra and the mother's mantra were the same. He then realized the truth of Swamiji's words. Prabodh Chandra Chatur. Yes. You want me to stop here, Brother?
Just, is it time?
It's 5 minutes we have, maybe discussion.
Yeah, let's have a little discussion.
Yeah.
But first, let's just say, Swamiji said to his brother disciples, I don't understand the mother. I understand her just a little. You don't understand her at all. You will come to understand her in time. But Swamiji was, whenever he would come into the mother's presence, he was just completely not himself, not the Swamiji that we know, the self-confident, forthcoming Swamiji. He would be very reticent and very, very boy-like in her presence. Anything at all from anyone else that they would like to add, or from your own experience or your own wisdom, or some concern you'd like to raise, or a question? Anything at all?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
has it been described anywhere why those who, or at least most of those who get the divine vision, tremble and become fearless? I mean, sorry, fearful, and not like ecstatic and I guess ecstatic.
Well, some of them become ecstatic. They lose outer consciousness and become ecstatic in that way. And when they return, they're full of bliss. This is the way it's narrated by some of them. Just think what it would be like to suddenly have something that you were looking at change so dramatically. Your mind, the left part of your mind would be full of alarm. Your left limbic system and your left cortex would be just overwhelmed, because it deals in the familiar names and forms that it knows. There's been many other instances of this in mystical literature, of people suddenly being confronted with something that is outside of their experience. It's familiar enough that they can recognize it. It isn't as if they can't recognize it at all. And their right brain, their heart chakra, receives it with joy and bliss. But we have two aspects to our chitta, our mind stuff. One is represented by the left limbic system and the left cerebral cortex. That becomes overwhelmed and puts us into a fight or flight mode. Of course, there wouldn't be a fight aspect to this, so it would be flight mode. Trembling and some of them, as narrated, actually ran away. Particularly that woman who was in her room. She ran out of the room. So it has to do with the quality of how centered and calm we are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can that be frightening for some people?
Well,
Or
yes. Yes. To be confronted with the unfamiliar, the totally unfamiliar, is inherently frightening to the left limbic system and the left cerebral cortex. It deals entirely, I mean, the neuroanatomists will tell you this. The left limbic system and the left cerebral cortex deal entirely in the familiar, the names and forms that it already knows, and it is constantly projecting and narrating our existence. That's why we have this sense of continuity, which is fictional. As Vivekananda points out in Jnana Yoga, the waking state is just as incoherent and discontinuous as the dream state. But our left mind weaves this fabric of continuity to keep us from realizing that. Otherwise, we'd be constantly in a state of anxiety greater than we are. So yes, Aaron, it would be frightening. But it wouldn't necessarily be overwhelmingly frightening. There would be tremendous bliss, the other aspect of ourselves, the right limbic system and the right cerebral cortex, which are tied completely to what we think of as the heart chakra, would receive it with great joy and bliss. Anything else?
no, thank you.
Anyone else? Anything? All right, I think we'll call it an evening there. And so again, Haima, thank you for making time and taking the effort to arrange your schedule so that you can read for us. You do such a wonderful job of it.
You're welcome, Brother Shankara. I'm honored.
Well, we're honored to have you do it.
Really honored.
So let's just close with this. Om. 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 Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Abhirabhirmoiti. O dearly beloved Lord, lead us from thy lesser truth to thy highest truth. Lead us from this relentless noise and endless confusion to thine abode of serenity, silence, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind, may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow evening, for those of you who decide to join us for the reading and discussion of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, we'll see you when we see you. Any final comments or thoughts from anyone? It's such a joy to share the Mother's life with you and to be reminded that she is our mother as well as the mother of those people who are narrating these experiences. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
night.